Hi everyone, and welcome to Animation Apprentice, and welcome to this video on how to make a ball bounce. Now this is part of the Animation Basics, the first module of Animation Apprentice, and there are some videos that you should be watching before you get to this one. You should watch the theory lectures, the 12 principles of animation, keys, extremes and breakdowns, the graph editor and the bouncing ball. You should also watch the technical lectures on the Maya interface, so that you understand what the basic keys are in Maya and how to use the keys. You also should watch the video on how to set a project, how to use the graph editor, and also how to import a rig into Maya. And once you've done all of that, you are ready to go. So let's get our Maya set up so that we don't waste any time and we get the most out of this tutorial. So the first thing we want to do is to create a project and set to it. So I'm going to go File, Project Window, New, and I'm going to call this Bouncing Ball. And I'm going to date it. It's now the 24th of August, 2018. We're in Maya 2018. I'm going to accept. Then I'm going to go File, Set Project. And there we go. There it is. And go Set. And now we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and save actually, no, we won't do that quite yet. Well, actually, let's go ahead and do it. File, Save Scene As, and then let's call this Ball. We haven't done anything yet, but we'll number it just to be sure. Ball Bounce version 1. And go Save Scene As. And now, if we go File, Open Scene, there ought to be, there it is. Assuming we've set correctly to our project, then the ball bounce will be there in case Maya crashes, which it does often, and we can reopen the file. I'm going to click Cancel for now because we don't need it yet. Right, so let's get started. Let's set our timeline from 101. Usually in a studio you'll be working from 101 rather than frame 1. And let's go from 101 to 125. So 101 to 125. So there we go. 101 over here, 125 there. That is exactly 1 second, right? 24 frames are a second. So we also need to set our playback speed to 24 frames per second. And we can do that under the Preferences cog here. If I click on that, it pulls up Preferences. And playback speed, there we go, playback speed is already set on my machine to 24 frames per second, but Maya by default sets it to play every frame, which you definitely don't want because then it'll be way too quick or possibly too slow. So you want 24 frames per second, and then click Save. You also want to make sure that Auto Key is turned on. That's this little button here. If it's red, Auto Key is turned on. If it's gray, it's off. So let's make sure that that is red. And also let's turn off this button here. This is the Select Surfaces button. Select Surface Objects. If it doesn't appear on your interface, you may need to open up some of these tabs. For example, I can collapse it. Maybe I can't. There we go. You see, it's disappeared. So you have to kind of click on these little buttons here to make it reappear. So if it's not on your interface, it'll be there somewhere. Just try opening up some of these tabs. We want Select Surface Objects turned off because we don't want to be keyframing geometry because we're going to be using a ball rig. Right, let's go ahead and find a ball. We need to go and find a rig. We can just create one. Actually, before we do that, we need to set up our screen. So it's the standard animators setup. So File, Panels, Layouts, 3 panes, Split Top. 3 panes, Split Top. So over here, that's our perspective view. Panels, Perspective, Perspective. We'll change one of these to be the camera view later on. And then down here, we want Panels, Panel, Graph Editor. Graph Editor. There we go. And that's the graph editor. Your graph editor may look slightly different. It may have a little yellow bar here. That's absolutely fine. I'm using the classic view because I personally prefer it. It doesn't make any difference. It works the same either way. And we can save this setup by going Windows. No, we can't. We used to be able to in older versions of Maya. Now we have to right-click over here and go down to Save Current Layout. Wait a minute. Can you see that? You may not be able to because of my screen. Hold on, let me just pull this up a little bit. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. Now you can see it. Save current layout, and it will enter a new name, and I'm going to save this as animation. And click animation 1, because I may already have done this at some time before. Click OK. Just going to move that down a little bit there. And then if I now go to Windows, saved layouts, nope, again, it's moved. Let's try it over here. There it is. It appears down there. I've got animation and animation 1, and I can revert to that anytime I want. Okay, let's go and find the ball. Now, one thing we could do to create a ball is just simply create one. We could go to Create Polygon Primitives Sphere, and it will just simply appear on our grid like that. And we can move that and bounce it around. But I don't want to do that. I want to go and find an actual rigged object. And there are lots of free ones available on the web which have better functionality than just using a basic primitive object like this one. So I'm just going to press delete on my keyboard and get rid of it and go and surf the web and see if I can find a ball rig. So I'm just searching for Maya ball rig. See what comes up. So there's a bunch of them. This one is Ultimate Ball for Maya. And if I click there, see what happens. So this takes us to a useful page. It's the website that used to be called Creative Crash. Now it's highendthree.com. It's part of an Ultimate series. There are quite a lot of these Ultimate rigs. They're all free. They're very good. They're well tested. So let's go ahead and download this. It's going to request. It's going to insist that I sign in. I've already signed in, so I'm just going to do that now and download the rig. Now, once I'm signed into highendthree.com, it will allow me to download it, and it downloads to my downloads folder. But unfortunately, it comes in as a RAR file, which I don't really want. So now I need to unrar it. And you may or may not have unrar software on your machine. If you don't, you can go ahead and unrar online. Okay, B1 Online Archiver. So I'm going to click here. Go to downloads and then unrar. There we go, and it will extract the files, and then I can go ahead and download that, and there it is, show in folder Ultimate Ball, and I can now copy this file over to my Maya file. So I'm going to go copy, and I'm going to go to my documents folder, and then I'm going to find Maya. Maya 2018 should be there. Wait, projects. There we go. Bouncing ball, 24th of August. That's today's date. And where's my scenes? Yep, open up scenes and paste. So there's Ultimate Ball V001. So now what I can do is close that out and then go back to Maya, go File, Open Scene, and it will find that if I've set my project correctly. And now I will have the ball. Now, because I've opened up a new scene, I've lost my setup. So I have to go back to right-click down here, Animation 1, and there we go. I'm back to what I had before. So here is the Ultimate Ball, and it's a nice little rig. I'll show you what it does. You can move these guys around here. This is the main move control. There's also a global root control down here, and squash and stretch controls up here, which allow us to squash the ball from both ends, which will be very, very useful. And I'll show you why. Okay, so we've got everything set up. So now all we need to do is do some animation. Okay, so we'll start by making the ball bounce. So what I'm going to do is go to frame 1 in my timeline, whoops, which I need to now set back to from 101. Actually, it would have been smarter if 125 if I had imported the ball into the shot, because that would have kept the shot parameters. Okay, so 101 to 125. So let's go to frame 125. That's down here, and let's raise the ball above the ground. And I'm going to select the main control. That's this one here, and move the ball up in the air above the grid. And I'm going to press S on my keyboard to set a keyframe. And you'll see a little red stripe appear here, and the main control will go red up here in the channel box. And I can go ahead and go to frame 125 and do the same thing, press S. And now you'll see keyframes appear in the main translates on the ball. Now, if I go to frame 113, I can set another keyframe with the ball on the ground. So I'm going to pull the ball down, and what I'm doing is I'm holding down the Shift key. As I move this arrow, I'm holding down the Shift key with my left thumb so that we don't get any sliding around in any other axes. What the Shift key does is it just means that we should, in theory, just be moving it in one axis. But if I want to check that, yeah, great. No, so none of the other axes have been animated. So that's good. So now what I will get if I press play is a ball bouncing up and down, but it won't look very good yet, so we need to fix that. And the reason it doesn't look very good is because the ball is actually slowing down as it falls. And you can see this from the main translate Y curve here. The ball is accelerating down, and then around about here, instead of continuing to accelerate, it starts to slow down. This is where the graph editor becomes the animator's most useful tool. It's a little bit tricky at first, but you will get the hang of it, I promise. And then here it starts to accelerate, it starts to move up slowly, picks up speed, and then slows down again. This actually isn't how balls bounce, right? What we want is a nice, crisp bounce, not slowing in at the bottom and not easing out as it comes up. So I'm just going to fix that very simply by drag selecting this keyframe here. That's drawing an imaginary box around it, and then going to tangents, break tangents. And what this means is that these two handles here can now be moved independently. So now I'm going to drag select the handle on the left, make sure I'm in the move tool. That's this guy up here. Oh, wait a minute, sorry, that's the select tool, excuse me. So I want to be in the move tool, which is this guy here. And now I can use my mouse button to, whoops, what I'm doing is I'm actually using the right mouse button to move that around. So then I'm going to go to this one here and again use the right mouse button to move that up like that. So you get a kind of seagull's wings effect. And now we'll get a nice crisp bounce on the ball, much more realistic. It's probably a little bit too much. Much more realistic, much more what we're actually looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and save this out. So I'm just going to press stop and then go File, Save Scene As, and I'm going to call this ball bounce. Okay, it's only showing me my, let me show my ASCII files. There we go. Okay, so the ultimate ball is actually an MA. So we're in, a .ma. You don't really need to know the difference at this stage. .ma has a bit more data in it and will save as slightly larger files, but it doesn't really make a big difference. So let's save this as ball bounce, no spaces when you're saving, underscore version 1, or even version, yeah, no, version 1, that's fine. And then go save as. Okay, so we've now saved our ball. So that's the end of the first video. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to bounce the ball across the screen.